Adrienne Elrod, senior spokesperson for the Biden-Harris 2024 campaign. Adrienne, it's great to see you. So let's talk about the setting of expectations. A lot of word manipulation on both sides, not surprisingly. Mitch Landrieu used the word fight 11 times on Meet the Press yesterday in one interview, and that is no accident. A recent CBS poll showing a majority, 66%, think Donald Trump is tougher than President Biden. How is the president going to combat that impression at the debate? They're similar in age, just 3 years apart, but there is a physical difference. Do they just look different? And, Joe Biden has been plagued by just the physical presence, the way he walks, a lot of fake or cheap fakes as we look at some of these falsely edited clips that the Trump campaign have been putting on to put him in the worst possible light.
Well, Andrea, thanks for having me. A couple of things. First of all, it's important to take a step back and keep in mind that President Joe Biden and Donald Trump have not been on the same stage in nearly 4 years. Since then, several things have happened, Andrea. Number one, Donald Trump has been impeached twice. Number two, he's been convicted of 34 felonies, so he's now a convicted felon. And number three, women's reproductive rights have been severely put in jeopardy because Roe has been overturned. So these are things that, of course, you're going to hear President Biden talk about. But I will tell you this, Andrea, he's taking this debate prep very, very seriously. Why? Because he knows what is at stake for the American people, because President Biden is out there fighting for the American people, fighting to lower costs, putting families first. Donald Trump is fighting to get back in the White House so he can seek political retribution among his enemies and to, essentially do things that are, selfish for him. He is a very selfish person. President Biden is fighting for the American people. That is why President Biden is taking this debate prep incredibly seriously. You will see a very energized President Biden. I can assure you of that, because he understands what is at stake for the American people. He understands that he is the only person standing in the way of Donald Trump getting back into the White House and being a dictator on day one, like he said he's going to do, cutting corporate taxes on the back of middle-class families and creating a nationwide abortion ban that would even harm women even more so since Roe has been overturned. So it's going to be a contrast of different visions for this country. President Biden is taking this very seriously. And I'll tell you, you're going to see a very energized President Biden who is looking forward to having these direct conversations with Donald Trump on Thursday night in Atlanta.
And the president's personal attorney, Bob Bauer, former White House counsel, is expected to be again playing the role of Donald Trump in debate prep. Here's what he told me last week as he was here talking about his book, Unraveling.
It's hard to say some of the things that he says, some of which are, very fact-free. And it's hard sometimes to take on that tone just because it's, by the way, not a natural tone for me. But then you're playing a role. You're trying to make the experience as realistic for the person you're working with as possible.
How hard is it to prepare for a debate with Donald Trump when he is so aggressive and says things and interrupts so often, as we saw in at least the first debate last time?
Yeah, well, first of all, President Biden beat Donald Trump twice in 2020 when they debated. So he's looking forward to having this conversation again. Andrea, I think when the issues are on your side, when you are fighting for the American people, and that is where your priorities are versus Donald Trump, who, by the way, has to resort to lying, has to resort to, as you mentioned earlier, his campaign putting out these cheap fakes online, perpetuating them because he doesn't have a vision for America. He is not fighting for the American people. He has no substance that he's running on. So when you're President Biden and you're prepping with your team to get ready for this debate, it makes it a lot easier when you have, number one, a record to run on, 4 major economic bills, 15 million jobs created and counting, historically low unemployment rates among not just across the board in America, but also among Black Americans and Hispanic Americans. When you've got a record to run on and you've got a vision for what you want your second term to look like, it makes debate prep a lot easier. Donald Trump has nothing to run on.
Well, let me ask you about the immigration issue, which the administration has been struggling with, and inflation. Even though it's coming down, still food and energy prices are still high, and those are the prices that impact people. And one other, quick thing is that there is a profile in the New York Times today of the 3 closest advisors, longest-serving advisors, informal and formal advisors to the president, and they're all white men in their 60s or higher, former Senator Ted Kaufman, 85 years old. So is that too insular?
Well, a couple things. First of all, Andrea, I'm glad that you mentioned immigration, because one thing that President Biden wants to talk to Donald Trump about on Thursday, and you will certainly see him do this, is why did you stop? Why did you stop your MAGA cronies in Congress from moving forward with a historic immigration bill that was bipartisan, that would have solved a lot of the issues that we're dealing with at the border right now? Why did you stop them from doing this, Donald Trump, when you say immigration and our situation at the border is one of your top priorities? So he's looking forward to having that conversation. When it comes to prices, President Biden has done a lot to lower prices. Of course, we came off of a once-in-a-generation pandemic that President Biden made sure we didn't go into a recession because of the policies he put in place. He's going to talk about how he's continuing to work to lower cost. Donald Trump practically cheered from the sidelines when inflation numbers were going up. He doesn't have a plan. So he's going to talk about that. And then finally, I'll talk about, the people who President Biden surrounds him with, some of his top aides. I know them very well. These are loyal, dedicated public servants who have a lot of experience and who were part of the team that really helped get some of these major economic policies in place under President Biden's first term in Congress. In the White House. They're longtime allies of the president's. Of course, they should be there in debate prep. You also have plenty of other women around, like Jen O'Malley Dillon, Anita Dunn, longtime senior advisor to the president. So he's got the team around him that is going to make sure that he is the most prepared for this debate. And again, President Biden is going to Thursday night with the American people at the forefront of his minds and how he's going to continue to fight for them. Whereas, again, Donald Trump only wants to fight for himself, only wants to seek political revenge on his enemies. That's where his priorities are. And you are going to see a significant contrast between these two candidates for the presidency on Thursday night.
Hey there, MSNBC fans. I'm Luke Russert, and be sure to join me, Rachel Maddow, Jen Psaki, Lawrence O'Donnell, Steve Kornacki, Joy Reid, and many more September 7th in Brooklyn, MSNBC Live Democracy 2024. Click on the link for ticket information. We will see you there.